This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Hi, I'm Chris Carter, creator of The X-Files, and you're listening to The X-Cast.
Welcome everybody to The X-Cast. The truth is in here. I'm Tony Black, your host, and I can't welcome you enough to the primer, the X-Primer, the very beginning of our voyage of discovery through The X-Files. And I'm delighted to be joined in this first episode with I would probably say one of America's biggest X-Phillies, or X-Files, however you say it. Please say hello to Tanya Hernandez. You're all the way in New York, aren't you?
Yes, I am. New York City.
I say all the way. Because I'm in the Birmingham, in the Midlands of the UK. So you could well be people who listen to this may well be closer to you than me. That's quite possible.
Possible. Yep.
So maybe I'm all the way. Before we get started, just talking about the X-Files as a whole. One of the big things I'm going to do is, in every episode, talk to my guests about what they think about the X-Files and their general perceptions of it and things like that. So I'm going to ask you 5 little intro questions, Tanya, if that's all right.
That sounds great.
Okay. Question 1. When did you first discover the X-Files?
I first discovered the X-Files from day one. Remember seeing the promos on Fox, and I was in high school or about to start high school. And I said, oh, man, I got to see this show. What is this about? And I was there from pilot episode 1, and I was hooked from that moment on. I was like, I had to watch it every Friday night because it used to be on Friday nights. And I just went from there. Like, that's been, like, my show. Like, I guess in geek culture, everybody has a thing. Like, they're a Star Wars geek or a Star Trek geek. I'm an X-Files geek. That's my thing. So, like, from day one, I was on board with the show right then and there.
That's a great geek to be, an X-Files geek, I think. So, yeah, you saw it right at the very... That's really cool, seeing it right from the very beginning. So, did you just happen to see it in the listings or whatever and think, right, I'm going to check that out? Or did someone sort of say, was it just completely, I'll just see what that's like, and then you were hooked?
Yeah, I just saw, like, the promos on the TV. Like, I watched Fox shows and stuff, But, like, when they started advertising it on during the commercials, I'm like, ooh. I was like, what's this? And then, like, my mother, she also, like, we kind of watched, like, the same thing. So she was like, oh, did you see that commercial? And it's like, yeah, we got to watch that. And, like, from that moment on, like, when it premiered and it was on, I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm hooked. I'm ready. Let's go.
So you made sure, did you watch it religiously for like 9 years?
Absolutely. Wow. I mean, it was to the point where one of my great college friends, we became friends because of the X-Files.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, like the first few days when, you go to the dorm and they have like a meet and greet with everybody on your floor, we kind of talked and stuff, and she mentioned that she had installed cable in her room, and I was like, oh, that's cool. She's like, oh, anytime you want to watch something, just let me know, you could come over. I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, because I didn't get cable in my room, and I really have to, watch my show on Fridays. And she stopped and looked at me. She goes, what show do you watch on Fridays? So I was like, and I was like nervous. I was like, X-Files? And she goes, oh my God. And, like, from right then and there, like every Friday we'd pile into her room and watch X-Files, like, from then on, and to the point where she's actually coming from Boston. She lives near Boston. She's going to come down for the weekend and watch the X-Files with me in my house. So it's going to be like we're having like a X-Files reunion.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's
really cool, that is. That's great. I'm going to answer these at the same time.
Okay.
Because I decided that if I answer them now at the very beginning, and then I'm going to answer them again, well, I'm going to answer a couple of them again at the very end of this whole journey I'm doing over the episodes. So it will be interesting to see if some of the questions I'm about to ask you will be the same in about 5 years' time, which is when we finish.
I know, right?
Yeah. So I first discovered it when I was, again, at what we call high school, secondary school in the UK. And it wasn't at the premiere, because we got it about a year after America. We got it about 1994, and it was on a channel called BBC Two in the UK, and it would be on at 9 o'clock. I think it was on a Monday, and then it was on and then it was on a channel called Sky One, and that was every Tuesday or Friday, actually. So we would get it maybe a week or two after America eventually. And I think I started watching it on Sky from the beginning of season 3, I think it was. But I remember catching bits of season 2. So I think the one that really sticks in my mind that I remember was Colony and Endgame, which really hit me, and I still love those two now. And from then on, I basically backtracked, and they used to release them on VHS in the UK, in 2 episodes at a time. Did they do that in America?
Yeah, they did, actually. They originally, cherry picked certain episodes and put them in a 3 tape set, and each tape had 2 episodes on it.
Yeah.
And it was I think 4 different sets of those, and I got a couple of those, and then I don't think they ever released all the episodes on tape, but I know when they started talking about DVD and they released them on DVD, I was there.
Yeah.
I picked those. I have all of them. It was really one of the first TV shows that did that. When DVD was still new, and they would just, some shows had cherry picked. That's a lot of what they did back then. They just cherry picked episodes. But yeah, I have a couple of VHSs on top of the ones that I made myself, recording the TV show.
Yeah, I did that. I did exactly the same. I could get about 4 on one tape.
Yeah.
Yes. And I always remember how it was the end of season 3. It was Talitha Kumi, I think that's how you say it. And it was on Sky, as I say. And I remember my parents were taking me on holiday to the British South Coast. And when you're, I don't know if you've ever been to England, but when you're 14 years old, the last place you want to go is Bournemouth, which is on the British South Coast. And it was specifically at the time that this was airing, the finale. I was like, "Oh, Mom, I want to watch the finale because it's going to be really good." And I just remember my nan, my uncle lived with my nan at the time, and they taped it on. And I've never wanted to get back from anywhere so much to watch that. So yeah, it was something that I then followed throughout the years. Okay, brilliant. Next question then. What is your favourite episode?
Bad Blood.
Oh, that's a great choice.
Hands down. I don't know what it is. That episode just gets me. And I feel like that episode just encompasses everything in one thing. It's, it's scary, it's funny, it's dark, and then you get that he said, she said thing, you get that great interaction with them. I mean, it basically encompasses everything that the whole show is in one package. And I usually if someone asks me, "Oh, I've never really seen the X-Files," I'll say, "Here, watch this episode first." That's the one I was like, it's a couple of seasons in, but just watch this first. And then when they get hooked, I go, "Okay, now go to Netflix and start watching it from the beginning."
I think that's a brilliant shout. I mean, it also has Mulder singing Shaft.
Yes.
Which is one of my favourite moments of the whole thing. That's a great choice. That's a great choice. Mine is Pusher.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And like you, I straight away, if someone says to me, "What's your favourite X-File?" it's Pusher, without question, because I think it was just brilliant. And actually, funnily enough, both our episodes were written by Vince Gilligan.
Really?
Yeah. So that tells you a lot.
Figure.
Basically. Yeah.
Go figure.
But yeah, Pusher's just amazing. It's got a great guest performance by Robert Wisdom as Pusher, and it's Mulder versus his Moriarty, from Sherlock Holmes. And when it builds to that amazing scene of
the Russian roulette.
Yeah, the Russian roulette at the end. It's just, even now, I'm just on tenterhooks. I'm just on the edge of my seat, even though I've watched it countless times. But I was really annoyed because a friend of mine does a podcast about TV, and he asked, he said, "What's your favourite ever episode of TV? Because I'll test you on it, 10 questions." And I chose Pusher, and I couldn't remember the name of the paint, which is cerulean blue.
Oh, cerulean blue, yeah.
Yeah, I was so annoyed. I was like, oh, I've seen this so many times, I can't remember cerulean blue. I was gutted.
I know, it's like, I used to know these details.
Yeah, exactly. How do I forget that? But he was timing me, so that's my excuse.
You are under too much pressure.
Exactly, that's what I said. So yeah, brilliant. I think we both chose well there. Question 3 then. What is your favourite season?
It's a toss between season 4 and 5.
Mm.
I think probably 4.
Right.
I think 4 just a little, it edges it a little bit. I think 4 and 5 are like my favorites. I also think that's like the peak of the show. After 5, it slowly goes down and then it dramatically dropped.
Yeah.
Certain events took place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 4 and 5 were probably the strongest and probably like the ones where I could go through it and say like I liked almost every episode.
Mm.
Like, you know, I pretty much judge it like that. Like, how many episodes in the season did I not like? And between 4 and 5, I think those are the ones that I like pretty much almost every single episode. Like, I could say, yeah, that was a good episode. That was a good episode, you know? But I'll say 4 a little bit higher than 5.
That's probably my second favourite season, actually, 4. I would agree that 4 is great pretty much all the way through. There's not many bad episodes in that season. In fact, off the top of my head, I can't really think of any. But I think mine would be 2.
Okay, yeah.
Simply because 2 has things like Scully being abducted. It has just some of the most scary episodes. I think season 2 was the scariest season because it's at that point that they haven't got a massive budget yet.
Right.
And all the effects and things are quite low budget and a bit lo-fi and just creepy, like episodes like Fresh Bones with the guy buried in the coffin at the end, or like Diane Divalet's with the evil secondary teacher, you know, and they're just really quite terrifying.
Utilize a lot of shadow.
They do.
It just that pretty much like cemented the look of the X-Files is.
Definitely.
And I guess that's why later on when they moved to California, it was so not as quality as that. Like it was quality in terms of budget, you know, and camera look, but it just wasn't that gritty, dark underbelly that the X-Files investigates, you know what I mean?
It feels, yeah, because the first season they were getting their heads around how it looked and how it came across and, and the formula, and there were episodes where that works really well, but there are some that it doesn't, and then, which we'll obviously see as we go through the season, as the first season is what we're tackling first, but season 2, yeah, I think it really hits its stride, and I think then for like you say, like the next 3 or 4 seasons are just really good, and it's only really after the movie that, and like you say, they move from Vancouver, it just starts to repeat itself maybe, or get a little bit like certainly season 7 is a bit of a parody of itself, isn't it?
Right.
In many respects, even though it does have some fun episodes. Question 4 then, who is your favourite character in the season? Now, it doesn't have to be obviously just Mulder and Scully, it could be anybody.
I mean, I'm just going to say Scully because that's, in terms of just being, you know, growing up with the X-Files during my high school years and into college, like seeing her on television was such, you know, inspiration, you know. I've always been attracted to like strong female characters. Like one of my favorite superheroes was Wonder Woman, you know, growing. Yeah. You know, I just always was fascinated by her. Like she was a doctor, but, you know, she was in the FBI and she had, you know, a military family. So she had like all these like interesting combinations that wouldn't normally go together. And it kind of also reminded me of me a little bit because like in high school, like I was always good in biology and science, but I'm also consider myself like an artist. So when I went to college, I went in with a bio degree, but then I switched to like an art degree. You know, I just that weird combination that just makes her up always like fascinated me. And she's just a kick-ass character, you know. She is. And I was going through the rewatch and like watching her, excuse my language, but I love when she doesn't take Mulder shit.
It's true.
You know what I mean? And she gives that look, or like I'll go on Tumblr and I'll see like memes of like all her looks.
Yeah.
And I think she's a character that changed the most. For the most part, Mulder's been pretty much Mulder throughout the series, but she changed the most from, you know, this wide-eyed, everything's black and white thing, and then having been abducted and then not accepting it right away, but then becoming aware, like, okay, this really did happen to me. And then just, towards the end, she had to become the kind of believer, especially when Mulder wasn't there. So I feel like she's gone through so much change. I mean, completely, not just her wardrobe.
I think you're absolutely right that she changes the most. I think that's really true, actually. And I think the episode I always think of and that sticks in my mind for that is Badlar, where she's having to try and be Mulder and do the leaps of logic, and she breaks down and cries because she can't do it. And I think that's season 8, just before he comes back, I think. But she just can't do it, and she's trying to connect the dots with, in a way, he would just go, and she comes out with it, doesn't she? And she says, he would just come out and just say, it's this, it's that, it's obviously this. I can't get there. And that's beautiful. That was beautifully written. And that always sticks in my mind to show how she got to a point where she would turn around to Skinner or whoever and say, he's an alien, or it's alien. Or, right. And if you look back at like season 1, she'd have gone, you must be joking.
Right.
It's like so true.
The eye roll, the infamous eye roll on the face palm.
Absolutely. So I think that's a great choice, yeah. Mine would be, I think, you see, my instinct is to say Mulder because he's just one of the greatest, look, they both are, but he's just one of the greatest characters ever created, really, in the modern era. But I think I would go with the Smoking Man, really, because I used to love any time I would because this was back in the day before the internet. I used to watch, obviously, the X-Files, really.
Right.
And I would get my information from like periodical magazines, like TV Zone we had in the UK, like Stardust and things like that. Yeah, and they would have the episode guides, and in those episode guides for the upcoming episodes that were going to be out on Sky or on video or whatever, they would have the cast. And whenever I saw William B. Davis, I was like, oh, it's in mythology. And I would get like, oh, he's back. And you never quite knew what they were going to do with him. So I always got so excited when he was in it. And I think he too became an incredibly fascinating character from the very start to the end. So he's probably mine, really.
I like that choice.
I like it. And finally then, just to round this off, what would you say your favourite moment from the series is? Do you have a moment that when you look back on the X-Files you think of, or a scene or something that happened?
Okay, I know, I got one. So I think I would say, the pilot cemented okay, I'm in this, I'm going in. But the one part that the one moment I think that really was okay, I gotta watch this next year is at the end of the first season when, Scully goes to exchange the baby fetus, the alien fetus.
Yeah.
For for Mulder.
For Mulder.
And Deep Throat does the exchange, and you think, okay, it's done, and then they shoot him.
Oh,
and
God.
She's like, no, and she's running.
Yeah. And
you just see her face, and she's at that moment, one, you're like, holy crap, he just killed Deep Throat. This is the guy. How could they just do that? And then two, you see when Scully realizes, okay, this thing is real. At least for this conspiracy that she's been rolling her eyes at, she's like, okay, there's some kind of traction to this. She just realized it right then and there, this is for real. Whether or not she believes that's a real alien or not, but she realizes, okay, there's a real conspiracy going on here, and there's real players in this game, and this thing is life or death. And that scene, that moment always stuck with me. Okay, when you see this, that's it. You're in. Let's go. We're going after these people. They killed Deep Throat. Let's go.
I think it's when as well. I mean, it's a great choice for a scene. I mean, it's brilliant. I think it's the bit where he just says to her, "Trust no one," and the way he says it, just with his last dying words, it sends a chill down your spine. Even now, I think, because it the very essence of what that word. I mean, obviously that word became then one of the show's 2 mantras, but it was the very essence of it is, just for a dying man in the government with power to tell you not to trust anybody is terrifying, isn't it, really? Yeah. And I think that's the point where you think, oh my God. And it's also from a TV standpoint, people, they didn't do that in TV. They just didn't kill people off like that. They didn't kill off main supporting character. It never happened. Right. So it's just one of those, wow, anything can happen in this show.
I know. And then they also close the X-Files, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, what? Like, the show is called the X-Files. How could this be? So, like, yeah, I would say that moment in the last episode of the first season. So
Great choice. I think mine would be first season again, but I think there's one moment, and I remember I'm trying to get my partner into watching the X-Files because she's new to it, and I showed her Deep Throat, which obviously will be coming up in a few weeks. But there's a scene in Deep Throat which I think just underlines the beginning of the show and kind of the characters, where they're scoping out the Air Force base and Scully's asleep in the car, and suddenly there's a big smash. And
with the window breaks, yep.
Yeah, and then Mulder runs down and he says, "You've got to see this." And he drags her up to the hill, and you see the UFOs dancing.
Yes.
And she goes, "What are they?" And he goes, "I don't know. They could be aircraft." And then suddenly you see them go into the sky, and she just turns to him and goes, "Oh my God." Like, what the hell was that? And it's one of those rare moments where Scully actually sees something, because obviously it's a running gag.
She always misses it.
She misses it, yeah. But that's one of the rare moments very, very early on where she actually sees something completely unexplainable.
Right.
And it's just, I just love that. I think that's just perfect X-Files. And that's the moment I always say to people, that's the scene I would show you, and to sum the show up.
That's a good one too.
Okay, cool. Well, those are the 5 intro questions. I think we have a good idea now of what your X-Files love is all about, really. I thought now we would move on to talk a little bit about the genesis of the show, really, because there's some interesting backstory to how the show was created before we get to the pilot, which we'll be discussing next week. But the whole conception of the X-Files and the framing of when it was made and everything like that is, I think, really interesting. How much do you know about that, and about how it came to be?
I know, like, Chris was very inspired by Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Yeah.
And he wanted to create something like that. And I've seen a couple of those episodes of that show. Not too many, but like I used to catch them on, I don't know if they have it over there, Nickelodeon channel. They have an adult TV Land, where they used to show like old TV shows and stuff like that. And I think they used to show it on there, and I used to catch it. Yeah,
you're absolutely right that Kolchak is the main inspiration for the show. It was a television series that aired in 1974-75 about a Chicago news reporter called Carl Kolchak, who investigated mysterious crimes with unlikely causes, particularly those that law enforcement authorities would not follow up. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
So, and
I think I've heard of that somewhere.
Yeah, they often involve the supernatural or science fiction as well. And the lead character was played by Darren McGavin.
Right.
Who do you know? Do you know who he played in the X-Files?
He's in The Unnatural, correct?
He was. Oh no, actually, he was in Travelers.
He was.
He was. Yeah, he was. He was Arthur Dales. He was the guy who started the X-Files.
Oh, right. Okay. I'm sorry.
But he was supposed. No. You're not. No. You're right. He was supposed to be in The Unnatural, but Darren McGavin was taken ill, so they cast M. Emmett Walsh to play his brother.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay.
But there's a deleted scene with Darren McGavin filming a scene. So no, you are right.
Okay.
But that was a nice callback to the inspiration by Chris Carter. Incidentally, apparently Darren McGavin was who he originally wanted to play Bill Mulder, but he was unavailable at the time.
Oh, okay. That would have been cool.
That would have been cool, yeah. But sorry, Tanya, my X-Files Blu-ray set I think is just arriving. Can you believe it? Right in the middle of this conversation.
That's awesome.
Please be coming to my house. Please be coming to my house. There's a guy just parked up outside with a van, and I'm expecting this today. So I'm sorry if I have to just dash up.
Oh, that's okay. Go.
I'm going to see.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah, he's here. Right, bear with me. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, it's here.
All right. Awesome.
I'm going to open this up right now.
Okay.
And I'm going to keep this in the podcast, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, this is my X-Files Blu-ray set has just arrived. Yeah. So if you hear interference on the mic,
that's okay.
I do apologise.
I'm living the moment with you, so I'm just as excited.
This is it's almost like I timed this specially, but I really didn't.
I know, right? It was fortuitous.
Here we go. Oh my God, it's in 2 boxes.
Really?
Hang on, it's nearly there.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness me. Oh, see, I wish we were on camera and I could show you, Tanya.
I know.
But it looks beautiful.
Oh man, you got to put up pictures.
I will do. Oh, the collector's set includes space for the 2016 event series, which
See, I like that alone. Like, I was hesitant. I'm like, damn, I don't know if I want to spend like on episodes again. But then it's like it has space for the new season. I'm like, oh God.
oh
I
yeah,
might have to like scrounge money up somewhere and get it.
I will take pictures and I will put them on the Twitter account and everything,
Yes.
and I will show people this. But I'm holding it now like a newborn child, and
Congratulations.
thank you very much. It's a boy. So yes, that will be investigated later when we're finished.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Oh, I'm very excited. So,
Obviously.
and it all happened on this podcast in the first episode.
In the first episode primer.
Oh, amazing. So,
It's perfect.
it is perfect. Okay, so yeah, Kolchak was a big inspiration, as we were talking about, but a big thing was that Chris Carter had been working on comedies and things like that beforehand for Walt Disney Pictures, and he started reading about alien abductions and thinking about Watergate, as well as Kolchak, and then he came up with the idea for the X-Files in '92, and it was an untested concept, and Fox wanted they wanted a love interest for Scully, which was on the cards for the pilot episode, but they also wanted somebody who was, to quote, taller, leggier, blonder, and breastier. I know, just ridiculous.
Damn. Hollywood.
Yeah, yeah, Hollywood. And thankfully, after she auditioned, Carter just only had eyes for Gillian Anderson in the part, and his persistence paid off, thankfully, in the end. I mean, that wouldn't have worked, would it? Having, like, some model-sized, buxom beauty as
They tried
Scully.
it with Corubius, you know? I guess
Yeah,
she was
yes,
supposed to be
that's true.
like her counterpart, you know? Yeah, what a different show it would have been. I think if that was how they would have casted Scully, I don't think the series would have lasted.
I agree.
Because I don't think anybody would have believed, like, someone like this would deal with this guy. And
Well, yeah, exactly.
this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't want to say that about, like, quote unquote pretty people or something like that. But I don't want to be like that. But I think it would have been harder to convince an audience that this world exists, like that exists in this world. You know what I mean? I'm very happy Chris Carter fought for her. I mean,
Yeah, he did.
or that they didn't change her look.
Yeah,
Because that could have been the other thing that they could have said, okay, well, you could have her, but she's got to dye her hair and da-da-da-da. Because, I mean, it depends, on the person and the character, but I don't think that look would have worked.
I think it would have just distracted from the point of the show, which was, and one of the big things that Chris Carter has said is that he didn't want them at that point to be considered to be a romantic pairing.
Right.
He'd seen things like moonlighting, and that's not what he wanted. So he wanted to make sure that it was a platonic friendship. And, I mean, at the end of the day, Gillian Anderson's beautiful.
Oh, yeah. No, I guess I don't want to say, like, one of her famous lines, smart is sexy.
Yeah.
Like, that's who you would expect, who is a doctor and an FBI field agent to be.
Like Bambi.
Yeah.
Bambi from
Yeah, from
Cockroaches.
the Cold-Faded, yeah. Yeah, not like that,
Her name is Bambi?
Yeah.
Bambi?
Yeah. So I think, to sell that world that they were trying to, where that's the thing too, like the X-Files wasn't, these people were thinkers, like they had to use their minds for a lot of the stuff, not just running in and shooting guns, this very rarely, like, do they ever shoot their guns just to kill stuff,
Right. It's not that kind of show.
Right. So you would think someone who is in that kind of work is not someone who would dress like a supermodel.
David Duchovny was the one that Chris Carter wanted, apparently, for Mulder, and he sent in the script, and apparently Duchovny's interview was, he spoke slower as Mulder. No idea why, but he made, apparently his audition was terrific, but he spoke slowly. But in the end, he read perfectly for the role, and that was. But again, there was skepticism from Fox because they were unsure because they were both unknown, at this point.
Right.
No, David Duchovny had been in Twin Peaks, but he played a transvestite, and nobody else knew it, and he'd done the Red Shoe Diaries. So
right.
It was the height of his fame, and obviously Gillian Anderson was pretty much completely unknown. So I think they were worried that without two, lead, actors who people knew that it wouldn't fly. But I think that the chemistry between the two of them was so good, and the way they interacted, that it didn't matter, did it?
Again, it's just fate. Like, you just think, okay, these two can't, but for some reason it works, and that's what I guess made it stand out from everything else too. So like, how Chris Carter didn't want moonlighting again. I think he probably made it so that it stood out from everything else, not using typically well-known actors, not using a Hollywood setting. They went into the wilds of Canada to film this show, it constant terrible weather. Like, it just stood out from everything else. It wasn't like anything else.
Right.
I think that all of that is what just made the show. It is, and ended up becoming like the basis for other shows to become, Supernatural, or to become, Sleepy Hollow. Things like that. They're the base of all of that. So I think, Chris, whether he planned it that way or it just happened.
I think the big key to it as well was how he set the characters up as being complete opposites, in terms of one being a believer and one being a skeptic, and one believing in science and one having a certain element of faith. And having those two balance each other perfectly while they're investigating these cases meant that week on week, from a procedural point of view, straight away you had, yes, you'd be seeing all kinds of paranormal weirdness, but at the same time, Scully had a relatively decent scientific explanation for most of the things that they looked at.
Right.
Even if 99% of the time she was wrong, there was at least some grounding of science that she could cling on to, and I think that really resonated with people. And setting that up at the beginning with these two in the DNA, I think was a really clever idea. Also, he was going to he got the idea, as I say, from alien abduction and things, and it came from UFO lore, but he envisaged in the early planning stages, Chris Carter, that a lot of the episodes would deal with investigations which uncovered hoaxes or cases which had been mistakenly viewed as paranormal, which would have been very interesting, wouldn't it, if it had been not actually real paranormality. And in the end, they, as he said, a lot of those ideas were pumped into Ose Chung's From Outer Space.
Right.
As a comedy. But that wouldn't have worked very well, would it? I don't think. If I think people loved the mystery, didn't they?
Yeah, I think the cool thing about the X-Files is, even a lot of times it would be left kind of open-ended. You know what I mean?
Like,
you're like, okay, this is the Jersey Devil or whatever, but then, like, you see the little kid in the woods, so it's like, what's gonna happen? So, like, I like that it was never fully resolved. Even though by David's commentary saying that Mulder was the worst FBI agent ever, never signed anything. I like that it was left open ended, because then it just makes you wonder afterwards. Just even though they may have solved this part of the case, like, it's still mysterious. They're still like, okay, wait a minute, like Gender Bender, where
yes,
okay, they found the cult or whatever, and they got the guy, but like, what happened to those people? Where did they go?
That scene for me makes that whole episode worthwhile, because it's a relatively, bland episode. But then when that happens, I always remember even when I watch it now, I'm like, wow, that's such a great way to end it, because you're like, what the hell? Who were they?
Right.
Where did they come from?
Right. And you're like, oh shit, like, they're still out there somewhere, like, doing this crazy stuff. So, like, I always like that even though by their standards, their case was closed, it was for us, it was never.
Yeah. There was always that little tease behind the curtain, wasn't there, for us?
Right.
That was like something else is going. I'll tell you another good one, and this is one from a later episode, but Signs and Wonders in season 7, which is a relatively, like, average episode.
Right.
At the end, the Reverend who seems to be the one, and nobody knew was behind it. Suddenly, he sits there, and a snake comes out of his throat, and bites something, and then goes back in. And I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
It's terrifying. And it's just things like that are just brilliant. And I totally agree. I think having those little tag scenes almost at the end were just keeping the mystery alive and keeping people, because obviously, and we'll get into this in a minute, but the mystery is always the most enticing thing, isn't it? It's the not knowing and not what you don't see. There were a few other inspirations as well, in that he, as he was developing the pilot with Daniel Sackheim, who was producing NYPD Blue at the time, they drew stylistic inspiration from the 1988 documentary The Thin Blue Line and the English television series Prime Suspect, which had Helen Mirren in. I don't know.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it. I never watched it, but I have heard of it, yeah.
It finished quite some years ago now in England, but it was very, very big over here, very well known over here. Right. And it's probably one of the things that Helen Mirren is most well known for in England still. Okay. And it's a very dark procedural crime drama with a very, very strong female lead performance, actually. So you can see where...
That sounds like a show familiar to me with Gillian Anderson.
Yeah. Where... It's like all these things make sense.
Yeah.
But as well, he obviously, as we mentioned, Kolchak, but The Twilight Zone was another influence, which you can totally see.
Of course.
When you look back at some of the old Twilight Zone episodes, the black and white ones by Rod Serling, you can see that you can imagine them as X-Files, can't you? Sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, just like we were saying, the whole thing with the teaser at the end, leaving you wondering. That's exactly how the Twilight Zone was, and I mean, you could see it. It's dead obvious,
Yeah, the inspiration is definitely there. Also, the Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, yeah.
Which you can definitely see with Clarice Starling and Dana Scully. Oh, yeah. And the platonic nature of the relationship, he wanted to emulate the Avengers.
Yes. Okay.
The 1960s TV show, The Avengers. So there's a lot of stylistic television and movie influences, which I think are really interesting there. But yeah, he founded 1013 Productions and planned to film the pilot in Los Angeles, but apparently they couldn't find the suitable locations for a lot of the scenes in LA. So they moved to Vancouver, and then history was made, really, wasn't it?
The X-Files and what it was without that city.
Have you ever been?
No, I've never been there. But I would like to visit. It looks like a cool place to visit, but I have to visit, like, I guess, if you want to do an X-Files tour of Vancouver, I guess you got to visit when it's, like, crappy weather.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. You've got to go when it's horrible.
Because, I have to say that, there was episodes where, I guess, again, like, Gender Bender took place in, like, Newark, New Jersey, and I've been to Newark, and it's a crap hole. Whatever corner of Vancouver they got to stage as Newark, like, they did a good job of finding locations for, like, real locations. I thought they did a pretty good job of kind of getting that feel of that area. And I guess Vancouver is just, it has, like, rural areas, it has suburban, it has urban. So I don't know. I think they found the perfect place because, again, if, Mulder and Scully, as much as Mulder and Scully make the X-Files, like, Vancouver is the third lead, I think.
Yeah, definitely. The location.
If it wasn't for that location to stage those scenes and to stage those moments, like, again, I don't know if the show would have lasted as long as it did. And I don't know if we'd still be talking about it the way we do now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. Yeah, so that's basically the genesis of the show and made some major facts as to what inspired Chris Carter to make it and some of the details about how it came to be. I think the last little thing to talk about on this is the legacy of it, really, because we can talk a lot about the show and about the how it came to be, but I think what it's actually spawned over the years is huge, isn't it? I mean, if you think about the 1990s, I think that the X-Files is one of towards the top of the list that kind of defines that decade.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the show lasted throughout almost the whole decade.
Yeah.
Okay, number one. And like I mentioned before, there was nothing like that on television ever. And, even people that didn't watch it, they knew about it. You know what I mean? And even now, people can reference, if you see, Bones, see a guy and a girl, they're partners. Oh, it's
Exactly.
like Mulder and Scully.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the immediate association. So to have that kind of association to someone who maybe never watched the X-Files, but they know, like, when you see, people that work in the government and it's a male partner and a female partner, the immediate association is X-Files. Like, that's pretty incredible, I think. That's really an impact on entertainment that not too many shows have, I feel.
Not many series have such an impact on pop culture, do they?
Yes.
Not, in terms of like you say, just people will now say, oh, Mulder and Scully. They've become like you would say Sherlock Holmes and Watson, or iconic characters like that. It's now Mulder and Scully are that. And it's just, they've gone on, like you say, Bones is a good example of that. You mentioned Sleepy Hollow before. Shows like Supernatural as well, even though it's about two brothers.
Right,
there's a lot of the X-Files DNA in that show.
Oh, yeah.
Even to the similar, writers going on and
even having Mitch Pileggi on it.
Right, yeah, exactly, yeah. And that's the other thing. And this is something that some of my friends who haven't discovered the X-Files when they were younger are shocked about. If you look at the writing staff on the X-Files, almost every single one of them have gone on to make a major TV show of the modern day.
Yes.
So, like we've said, we've got people like Vince Gilligan with Breaking Bad. You've got Howard Gordon with 24. You've got, say, Alex Ganzer and Howard Gordon for Homeland. You've got Jeffrey Bell, who on things like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's all the TV shows of today, almost all of them, you can track back and you'll go...
wow, they were on the X-Files.
They were on the X-Files.
Yeah. I find amazing, too, how many, not only just people behind the scenes that have gone on to make, like, amazing shows and productions and things like that, but, like, how many... Like, I wish there was a video, someone would do a video of how many actors were on the X-Files and went on to become huge.
Well, it's funny you should say this, because one of the things that I'm going to do in this podcast for most episodes is a celebrity spot.
Okay.
So we're going to collate as much as possible all the well-known people from all the episodes.
I was watching was it in the... I think the one that you mentioned with the flying saucers, Seth Green. I was like,
oh yeah,
that's Seth Green. Like, and then I started watching more episodes. I'm like, oh, I recognize this person. Oh, I recognize this person. Oh, I recognize this person. And I'm like, wow, like, there's so many. Like, it's incredible how many people were on the X-Files and just ended up like amazing careers.
But yeah, the legacy of the show is huge, and it's gone on to spawn so many things and characters and ideas. And I think for me, it's one of the reasons it's one of my favourite things. Well, it is my favourite TV show in the world, and always will be, is because it helped fashion the modern TV age. And it was around a certain golden age of TV where things were really starting to, long form storytelling was starting to happen, and it just set a bar really that people have matched in many respects. There are some great shows out there that are as good as the X-Files. There's no question about that. But in terms of how much I love them, nothing will ever top this. Nothing in the world.
Again, it's like you said, like it's the 90s show that kind of set it. It was the groundwork for so many other things. Later on.
That's so true.
That still now harken back to it. That I'm sure when someone is creating a show nowadays, they're like, oh, yeah, X-Files. Let me see if I can get something take from that. Like, let me take a little bit of something from that.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that probably when they pitch new shows in Hollywood, they would say, oh, it's the X-Files meets Lost.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's one of those now, which is great because you can immediately conjure up an image. If someone says, oh, the X-Files, it's everyone, even if you've never seen it, like you said earlier, they will have a general idea of what it is. Yeah. So its legacy can't be underestimated. It's just become part of pop culture now and entertainment culture, and it's so wonderful that it's about to come back. Because, I don't know about you, I thought the ship had sailed. I really did. I thought, it's over. We're not getting film 3.
Yeah.
They are getting older, especially David Duchovny. He's starting to look 55.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, this is it now. We've just got to... So to hear that we were getting the miniseries, even if it is the last one, then at least it's back for a bit.
So, like, I'm going to say more than 3 or 4 years ago, there was still talk of like, oh, well, David's like, oh, I really want to, da 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 da. And I'm like, I'm sitting there like, whatever, this is BS. Like, they're never going to do it. They're never going to do it. And especially after the movie. I liked the second movie, but it was not perfect.
No, not at all.
It was billed as a summer movie. It shouldn't have been.
It was up against The Dark Knight. It was never going to beat The Dark Knight. Yeah.
It was a Monster of the Week, which I love Monster of the Weeks, but if you were going to spend the time and the money, it should have been a mythology episode.
It's not what people wanted.
No, it's not. It's not what we wanted, obviously, right? But I still enjoyed it. But after that, I was like, damn it. I was like, that's it. It's not going to happen. Like, we're not going to get anything. And then 2 years ago, I guess it was the 20th anniversary. Fox was kind of lightly celebrating the 20th anniversary of the show.
There was the Comic-Con panel, wasn't there?
Which I was there.
Oh, awesome.
I was there for that. I made sure I was there. I sat through 4 panels to make sure I was dead center front row in front of David and Jillian.
Brilliant.
Okay. And when I saw them on stage, I was like, and the way they were talking, I was like, God damn it. I really want them. Come on, they have to do this. And then from that point on, they both, because like for a while, it was just David saying, yeah, I really want to do it. I've been talking to Chris. I really want to do it. So I'm like, but Jillian wasn't really saying much. She was kind of doing her thing in England with, BBC and stuff like that. But then after that panel, they were both starting to talk about it. And I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
There's hope. There's hope.
Maybe there's hope. Yeah.
Maybe there's hope. And then you see on TV, 24 came back with a mini series.
Yeah.
Other shows were starting to come back like, oh, we're going to do like a small set. And I'm like, you know what? I was like, they should really do that. That would be fantastic. It's probably cost less, right?
Yeah.
And you could still do like the X-Files. And that's where it belongs. Like, as much as I loved the first movie, like the X-Files belongs on TV. Just from there, like when they started talking, I was like, oh man, I think it's going to happen. Like I actually got excited. I was like, I think it's going to happen. And then I think it was after Jillian did that thing with Nerdist, where she was like, start tweeting Fox and stuff. But it's funny because I know she said everybody start tweeting. And that's when everybody on the internet started going crazy and harassing Fox and stuff like that. I think I have read somewhere that by that time, they were already committed to doing it.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it was kind of just like a last little, listen,
yeah.
They're still there. Like everybody's still there. They still want this, kind of thing. But man, you don't even know. I don't even remember like what I did the day they announced that they were going to do it. I think I was just looking online and tweeting and talking about the show coming back.
Yeah, I just went crazy. I just went mad. I was like, oh my God, how it's like a dream. It was because I think you're right. Is that it? I think they started to question whether or not the fan base was still there and whether or not it would be popular or whether or not it would make any impact. And I think it was a combination, of them realizing that the fans were still there and they wanted it, and also, like you said, the revival of 24, Heroes coming back, things like that, which people wanted and people were keen on. There's this wave of nostalgia right now going through to television,
big time,
and movies in an extent as well, with all the remakes and things. And but with TV, they're not remaking things yet. They're just going back and getting all the band back together.
Right.
And the X-Files was a perfect one to do that with because it's unfinished, and B, everyone is still in the point where they can get away with it. I mean, the inevitability is going to be that one day they will reboot this show, and one day somebody will do it again, and it won't be the same, and it will be a very, very different thing. And all us original X-Files fans will hate it.
Yes, absolutely. When the rumors started circulating, the first rumor was that they were going to just redo it with new characters. Yeah. I was like, I'm not watching it.
No.
Screw this. I think they're even better now. David and Jillian have just gone, especially, I think Jillian has just gone, I think she's almost like, she's getting to be like, she's going to be a Helen Mirren Sarah at one day. You know what I mean?
She will.
So like,
look at Hannibal. I mean, how good she was on Hannibal.
Yeah. Or The Fall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
amazing.
It's a great show.
So like, she's done all this. He's done stuff like they're just gonna be even better. You know what I mean? Like just get them to do it. Like stop it already.
And I think that's exactly what they thought, in that they've got two stars who are relatively famous. In the sphere, they're not like A-list mega Hollywood, but they're famous enough. People know who they are. Not even the supporting character people, like William B. Davis is still alive. Mitch Pileggi doesn't look that much older. Really.
God no, he looks the same to me, except with a white beard.
He's just got a bit of a beard going on now, and it's just like, well, you can still do this, and you can still. It doesn't look like a load of old age pensioners just tottering around, and it's
right.
Exactly. It's that whole thing that I think they realised that, and they were like, let's go for it. Let's give it another. I mean, I'm not even convinced necessarily they think this will be a massive hit. I really think this is more for the fans than for the wider world,
right.
Really. For the reward, for the amount of money and time and
right.
fandom. But I think that it's a testament really to the new wave of how this nostalgia is working, that it actually got to come back, because
right.
This wouldn't have happened 4 or 5 years ago at all.
No. I'm telling you, I knew. I was like, after that second movie, I was like, I literally walked out the movie theater and I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is how it's going to end.
That's the end. And it wasn't good, was it? We all left thinking, this isn't how we want it to.
Right.
This isn't the last one.
Right.
No, it can't be.
Like, I enjoyed it, but like I said, I just knew, like, damn.
Yeah.
I'll have my DVDs. Like, like that was kind of how I was. Like, I always have my DVDs.
I'll always have the past. Yeah, the old days.
So I feel like, I think Fox has a bit of faith in it. They're pushing this new merchandise.
There's the Blu-rays as well.
Blu-rays,
that's a big one.
That's huge.
That's huge. We've been waiting for that for years.
That's huge that they're putting the money, because I remember they asked Chris when Blu-ray was getting big, and things were getting converted to Blu-ray. They asked Chris. They were like, Chris, what are you going to put X-Files on Blu-ray? And he's like, oh, I don't think it's going to work because, the footage, it wasn't, it was 4:3. It's not 6:9, 16:9. And, I don't know. But at some point, and then last year or a few months ago, they put the first season on Netflix in HD. And it looks like a show that just came out.
Right. It looks amazing.
It looks amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's the other reason why I'm considering rebuying them on Blu-ray. But the fact that Fox is like, okay, let's invest some money in this. Because that's expensive.
It is.
Getting the original footage and converting it, and then updating like the digital graphics from then and like making them look fresh. Like, that's expensive. And the fact that Fox is like, okay, we're going to do this for the series. Like, I feel like they have faith. So I'm comfortable. Like, I'm happy. Like, okay, it wasn't just some toss away type of, we're just going to do this or whatever. Like, I feel like they wanted to do it, and they feel like they're going to get more out of it. And maybe they'll have faith in doing another little run, hopefully. Hopefully, if not that, I definitely just want this to just end correctly. You know what I mean?
Well, this brings us on to the last bit of the podcast, because obviously the fact is you have a little bit of a jump on us, don't you? Because you've seen the first episode of the series, haven't you? Which is it called My Struggle?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I did attend the New York Comic Con panel screening for the first episode. I made sure I was at the convention center at like 7:30 in the morning to get my wristband, because the way they set it up was for the big panels. A lot of the smaller panel rooms, you could sit in the panel and just stay there and just sit through a whole bunch of panels. But for the big ones, they always empty out the room. So in the morning, before the convention floor opens, you get on a line, and there's different lines for the different panels, and you get a wristband. And the wristband guarantees that you can get into the room. If you don't have a wristband, you cannot get in. They count them off. So I made sure I woke up and got to the convention center, because like it was in Manhattan, I live further north in another borough, so I'm about 40 minutes away. But I made sure I got there at 7:30, and when I got there, there was hundreds of people already there with wristbands. And I almost freaked out. I literally almost freaked out. I'm like, and I went in, I'm like, are there still wristbands? And they're like, yeah, here. And I'm like, put it on my wrist. And, so basically, the panel wasn't until later in the day. So you just come back like an hour before the panel starts and you line up. And if you have your wristband, then you get him. So my friend and I, we made sure we had our wristbands. We were great. So I got in, and I have to say, it was, when they say electricity in the room,
Right.
You felt it immediately when you walked in there, because they were so, this room was packed.
Yeah.
Packed. There was no empty seat in that room. Everybody was so excited. You just feel like there was a hum in the whole crowd, and everybody was so excited for this, because not only were we getting to see the first episode, we were getting to, Chris was going to be there, David was there, Mitch was there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just such a wonderful experience. And when the episode aired, everybody was quiet, I won't give details or anything like that, but it was awesome. The cool thing, the other cool but strange thing was the moderator. He was like, "Okay, everybody, we're gonna watch the episode, but if you notice, there's men walking around in suits, and there were, and they're like, these people are from Fox, and they are gonna watch the audience to make sure nobody is recording this.
Yeah, yeah.
If they catch you, they're gonna kick you out." And I swear, it felt like Men in Black type of Jose Chung type of thing. They were literally, during the whole thing, they were literally walking around. He was like, one of them has a night vision goggles. He's up in the balcony watching everybody. And it was dead serious. Because I heard two of the guys, they stopped near me and they were talking. One guy was like, "Oh, there's a girl over there. She took out her cell phone, but she was just shutting it off. But just keep an eye out on her." Oh my God, this is crazy.
Yeah, they're yeah.
It's like an episode of the X-Files where Big Brother's watching us and stuff. But I mean, it was just really cool. And Chris said, the way he said it was that, yes, the first episode was called My Struggle. So it's 6 episodes. The first episode and the last episode is My Struggle 1 and My Struggle 2.
Right.
So those are the mythology episodes. And then the 4 in the middle are going to be Monster of the Week episodes.
Yeah.
So that's what, yes, the first episode is called My Struggle. And then the last episode of the season will be My Struggle 2.
Well, obviously you're going to come back later on in the new year to talk about My Struggle when it airs.
Yes.
You can have a proper spoilery chat about and break the episode down, which is going to be really fun. But without obviously spoilers and without really saying much, is it the X-Files we knew? Is it the show?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so excited.
It definitely feels like an X-Files episode. I will say I kind of wish they would have made it a longer episode, because I feel like a lot happens very fast.
Right.
And I kind of wished, at the end of it, I was like, damn, I wish I could see this again so I could catch some stuff.
Yeah.
Which obviously we'll get a chance to do that when it does come out, but I wish it would have been like an hour and a half type of special episode type of thing. Pacing is very fast, but you do get caught up with what's going on since the last time we've seen them. And you get that it happens fast, but it happens throughout the episode, so you understand what's going on.
I see.
Okay. It does feel like an X-Files episode, especially there's one scene where it's very reminiscent of the scene where we were talking about with Deep Throat with the spaceships in the sky.
Oh,
that
wonderful.
Moment, that moment, remember I was saying that moment that really stands out?
Yeah.
There's a scene like that in the episode that you're gonna be like, oh my God.
I'm gonna flip that.
Yeah, you're gonna flip. And so that's pretty cool. I love that, even though it still feels like an X-Files episode, it takes place in the modern time. So that's the other great genius about the way Chris Carter wrote this. That's always the running thing with the show, was that it almost seems like he predicted things, like the whole lone gunman thing and the 9/11 thing, unfortunately. But like sometimes that's the writer thinks of all the angles, and it just so happens that life reflects the things that we think about.
Yeah.
So it's just perfect that the show takes place in the modern era because of everything that's happened and everything that Mulder predicted was going to happen. It's happening, like you see it in the trailer where it's like, we got drones that fly in the sky.
Yeah.
We're not as safe as we, the way they want us to make us think that we are. I mean, it's perfect. Like it
feels like the right time for it to come back, doesn't it? Yeah.
So it definitely reflects our time and how perfect it is that Mulder is back in this time and he's still who he is in this time. You know what I mean? I wrote a little article myself, but I didn't put any spoilers of it. I mostly spoke about the panel itself and some elements of the show. But I will say that I don't think this is a spoiler, but the fact that the opening theme is the same.
Oh, good.
That it didn't change.
Yeah.
And it's just one little addition to it, but the theme is the same. Like the opening, like that whole it's the same.
That's great.
It's the same. So the fact that that's still there, like, should make people happy. Like this is the X-Files. Like when you see it, when we saw it, like everybody in the room just cheered because they were like, okay, it's back.
Our show's back.
The same.
Yeah.
It's still the same X-Files. You know what I mean? It has a couple of new things there, but it's still the same. So I think everybody will be happy with it. I'm sure everybody's going to be like me, wishing more. There was more to it.
Yeah.
Hour never seems enough, but I think everybody will be happy with it.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure the fact it's back and the fact it sounds like the old show with some new trappings, I think he's brilliant.
I mean, everybody gave it a standing ovation. And I don't think, even though we're excited as fans, I don't think we would have done that if that was not just because it's X-Files. Like, we really wanted to give a standing ovation to it because it was just it was like, yes, this is right. You're doing it right,
Well, that all sounds really good. Sounds really exciting. I can't wait to see it. We'll be back to talk about this when My Struggle has aired and we can properly, dissect it and go through all the things, and that's going to be a really exciting special episode of the X-Cast. We'll do that in the middle of the run of season 1 episodes and our nominated episodes, because how it's going to work is we will have episodes going through chronologically of the series, but every third episode we're going to have a nomination by somebody. So, for instance, we'll do the pilot, Deep Throat, and then episode 3 of the X-Cast will be Home from season 4, because that was the first one that was nominated. So we're going to jump ahead at points, and we're going to look at some others, which will be a nice, fun way of keeping it a bit fresh and meaning we don't keep doing it in complete order. Right. So this will be a really fun special episode about My Struggle, which will come out a few days after the premiere, which is really exciting. So yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on the X Primer, Tanya. It's been brilliant. It's been a really great conversation, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me on and giving me this opportunity to totally geek out with another X-Filer and having other X-Filers geek out amongst us. So I just think it's really cool. I do a couple of things online, but I've never gotten a real chance. I used to be on the boards back in the day, all the message boards and stuff like that, and that always used to just make me happy and stuff. So I was more than elated. Thank you so much for having faith in me and joining you in this podcast. I hope it turns out really great. I hope everybody enjoys it, and just thank you, and just thank you, just X-Files, you know what I mean, for us.
Yeah.
Us having this ability to talk about it together like this. It's just amazing.
It's really cool, isn't it? It's my pleasure. Don't thank me. It's my pleasure to speak to someone who knows it as well as me and has the passion for it. So yeah, it's great. You'll definitely come back on and share that. Where can we find you online, Tanya, if people want to look you up or follow you or anything like that?
Awesome. So I do write for a blog with a couple of other my friends. We've been doing it for a couple of years. Our site is called Beefutechie.
Cool.
And we write a lot of gaming articles, but we also write about, entertainment. I, of course, handle all the X-Files news
Awesome.
on there, and stuff like that. We also do a lot of live game streaming from that, our Twitch TV, Twitch TV/Beefutechie. I do personal streaming on my own channel, which is twitch.tv/Amazon Agent. You can find me on Twitter at Amazon Agent, and YouTube. I'm also on YouTube. I put up a couple of videos of a lot of my gameplays with my friends and myself. I'm planning. I have to make sure my setup can do it. I want to play either both or one of the X-Files video games that came out back in the day.
Cool.
I
remember those.
Yes, I have the PlayStation 1 game and I have the PlayStation 2 game. And I've played them before on stream, but I really want to do like a good sit down. So if anything, you can follow my Twitter and hear about it, or you can follow my YouTube, which is youtube.com/Amazon Agent. And I'll put up the video footage there. I might do it live. I'm not sure yet. I have to see if my setup could do it, because I know nobody has any real footage of it. So I really want to try to do something special before the show comes out.
Oh, that would be so cool. Please do let us know.
Yes.
And we will watch this and we will tweet about it, and we will on the Xcast we'll make a big deal.
Awesome.
That sounds wicked. I really, really want to watch that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks. I will definitely let you know.
Please do, because I love playing Resist or Serve.
Oh, yes.
It was brilliant, and it's got a really good story.
It does. It's just great. It just has all the great little Easter eggs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
proper good.
I will let you know for sure.
Please do. That sounds great. Everyone, you can find the Xcast on Twitter at @the_X_cast, and we're on Facebook at the Xcast. You can email us at thexfcast@gmail.com. And please do let us know what you think. This is a new venture, obviously. The plan, as I've said before, is that we're going to go through each of the X-Files episodes with nominations from people. So if there are any episodes that you actually want to nominate for us to cover later on that are from beyond season 1, then let us know, okay? And we might be able to get them on the roster a bit earlier. So if you've got a particular favourite from season 9, unlikely, but if you do, you can, you might be able to get featured a bit earlier, and we will name check everyone who does nominate as well. So yeah, let us know what you think. Tell us if you think there's any cool extra things we could do. And, if you wanted to be a guest on the show, again, let us know. And you might be able to come on and share your X-Files love and answer the 5 questions. We will also... The 5 questions. we will also have a quiz starting from the next episode. And I'll make sure, Tanya, that you get a quiz on my stroke next time. So that'll be fun.
I got to study.
Yeah. Make sure you do. But yeah, please do contact us and let us know, especially if you're an X-Files fan. We want to hear from you. We want you to, spread the word. We're on iTunes. Please do leave us a review on there, because it will boost our ratings and get us known amongst the other X-Files podcasts. And we're also hosted by Acast as well. So check those guys out. Those are the ones who allow us to host. You can find our website at beholemedia.com, which is the overarching podcast network that we're on, which has some other cool film podcasts on there if you're interested. So check us out on there, and we may have a blog up soon with some articles and things like that, so we'll see. But yeah, we'll be back next week with our first official episode looking at the actual X-Files episode, and we're starting with the pilot. So check us out for that. Once again, thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Tony. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
That's my pleasure. And remember, guys, until next time, trust no one. The Xcast, an X-Files podcast, was created by Tony Black and is produced and hosted by Carl Sweeney, Sarah Blair, and Kurt North.
You can find the podcast on Twitter at the X_Cast, on Facebook by typing in the Xcast, and in our group, X-Files Basement, the Xcast podcast fan group, and on Instagram at the Xcast Pod.
Don't forget, you can support the show by becoming a member on Patreon. Our patrons get early access to episodes, behind-the-scenes chats with our hosts and a thriving community of X-Files, and other premium interviews and specials. To find out more and subscribe, you can go to patreon.com/thexcast. That's patreon.com/thexcast.
We are also part of the We Made This podcast network, full of popular culture shows, including our Millennium series, The Time Is Now. You can find all of our shows at our website, wemadethispod.com, or via Twitter at wemadethispod.
Thanks for listening and keep watching the skies.